Internet, what's going on? What's happening? How's your weekend? I hope it was good. Mine was okay. Thank you for asking. Guess what? It's Sunday. That means it's Sunday roast time. So let's go.
This is the North End. This is the North End.
Guys, it is Sunday. This is the Sunday Roast, a regular North End YouTube channel piece of content we like to get out the door Sunday on the heels of what is usually an exciting Premier League weekend. This is no exception. Lots to talk about today. With me, as sometimes, I'd like to say always, but we have a rotating cast of characters and misfits. David Convery, somewhere in his basement in the area of Niagara Falls, Canada. And then somewhere in Toronto, Luke the Duke. Hard to pin down for sure if he's in Toronto. I think there's a good chance his gypsy wandering will take him away to some other place during this broadcast, but we'll see.
Absolutely.
There's a chance.
We'll see.
There's potential for that.
We will see. Guys, how are you? How has your weekend been? How has your Sunday been?
Wasn't great earlier due to football, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But other than that, it was nice. Did a little golfing earlier. It was been a pretty chill weekend.
Oh,
people are still golfing.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right,
weather's
that's
great.
awesome. Luke,
What about you,
Duke? How are you? How are you?
I'm well. Although Connie saying I golfed and calm weekend in the same sentence is nonsensical. Clearly, we don't play golf the same way. I worked actually. I worked weekend. Yeah, not at work. It was it was fun though. I was hosting a wedding bridal show. So basically a fashion show for a big wedding convention. Yeah, I came up with some great jokes. I introed and asked people if they were getting married. And then I asked the women who weren't getting married to put their hands up, and then I gave them all business cards. So that went down pretty well.
I could see Luke officiating a wedding. I'm going to throw it out there.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure he's done it already several times.
It's good money. Good money.
JP's.
Yeah.
JP's wedding.
Yeah.
Or like a real legally binding wedding. You know, not like what JP did, which is like convincing his wife that like it's all kosher and legal now, but like a real legal.
Did any of them take the business cards? Like, was it successful or?
I don't know. Time will tell. You gotta. It's like fishing. You gotta learn a couple of lines, and then I was giving them out pretty willy nilly. So I'm gonna have to really go through the squad like it was Chelsea. I gotta be. A couple of them are gonna go into the under 21s. Some will be able to step up. Rotation roster maybe. But we'll see if there's any strong week in week.
Lovely. What about you, Paul? We haven't spoken with you. How was your trip back across the pond?
Oh yeah,
I had a 10 out of 10 trip to Scotland and then England. Saw lots of family, a lot of baby cousins who are now my height, which is always a weird.
We are old.
Kind of set of things that happen. It's not so much me feeling old when that happens. It's more like me going, "Wow, you are old, and you're a dumb shit teenager." And I'm going to tell you all the reasons why your generation suck. But it's not me getting old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. I saw a Glasgow Celtic game at Celtic Park, which was amazing seats. My uncle's watching. Thank you so much for hooking that up. And then I was fortunate enough to see my first ever Manchester United game at Old Trafford.
Your first one?
Obviously, it's I've been to Old Trafford, but it was always kind of like in the summer during off season, so doing the tour and stuff. But this was my first ever game.
They let you down.
I don't know, man. Still, I could give two shits of what happened on the field that day. I was just so on cloud nine. I was Old Trafford, like whatever. I'm still on cloud nine about the whole thing. So it was a great trip, super awesome. The biggest thing was that my son was not an asshole the entire trip. He was only partially a little bit of a jerk, but he could have ruined the entire trip if he had gone full 7-year-old asshole, and he didn't.
Good for him.
That's fantastic.
It was.
I'm proud of him.
You come back from a trip like that going like it's like a bomb. It's like you somehow diffused it, and you're just like, wow, that could have gone so much worse than it did. But it was awesome. Thank you for asking. Anyways, Premier League. Let's get into the Premier League.
Yeah.
So I'm going to maybe take us back and forth in a couple of different ways. I'm of the mind that we actually do have what I would call a potential Premier League race. I think I'm maybe the minority on our Premier League fan channel, and that I actually think there's a proper 3-horse race going on.
I'm with you. I think the rest of the crew, and Luke's one of them, they're a little bit delusional. We talked a little bit about it last week, and we talked about like it's literally insane some of the takes that we're getting in our group. It's like 7 games in, and like everyone's like, oh, only one team's gonna win. Like, get a grip, man.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about this, but obviously I'm the one who says I think Arsenal are in this race, guys.
I'm with
and
you.
then somehow, because I say something as gentle as that, I'm called a Man United fan who's cheering on Arsenal for a whole bunch of other reasons, which is kind of a wild hot take. But so in the standings, top of the table, Liverpool do the business against Crystal Palace. We'll talk about that. Manchester City come back to take. In what seems like maybe in the scoreline, it was more close than actually was in reality. And then Arsenal are doing the business as well. I'm not going to talk about Chelsea. Chelsea in fourth place. The gap in fourth is not one to ever be a thing, I think, this season. It will always be its own race. So we'll compartmentalize fourth as a separate conversation. So just talking about the three teams that are in this race, I'm going to take us to Crystal Park, where I thought, on balance, it's those weird ones where I can say I thought Liverpool were a little bit unlucky not to have a more commanding lead with the dominance they showed at points of this game. But I could also say I feel like they got a little bit lucky, a little bit fortunate to have walked away from this game with a full 3 points.
Yeah.
I thought Crystal Palace had a few opportunities where those are the things that you want to have happen during the game. Those are the players that you want the ball to fall to. They just could not place the ball anywhere away from the keeper 3 or 4 times, I think, that game. What did you guys make of this? Do you agree that it feels a little bit like, I don't want to say lucky because obviously they played well, but it did feel like they kind of were not at the races this game? Liverpool, I mean.
You go ahead.
Yeah.
I've got some thoughts on this game, but you go ahead.
I love that. So I've only seen highlights, so I'm yet to watch Match of the Day and really delve into it. But I think you're pretty astute with that one, Paul Paulinson. I fully agree. Although what I will say is, what constantly impresses me with Liverpool is that when certain players aren't stepping up, Diaz has been on fire. Obviously, I think he was injured, wasn't he, for this game?
Yeah.
Then you had, but you
was
still
he
got
injured?
a lot
I couldn't figure that out because he came off the bench.
Yeah, was it rotation or was he just?
I think
and my fantasy team needs to know.
Well, I think there was talk that was he sick? I think maybe a flu or something, and so they was like, will he, won't he? And I think maybe they just chose not to. But then Jota, out of it pops up with goals, right? And I think they've got a lot of ability, like to score goals, to make things happen.
Yeah. I think if
Gakpo.
you watch this game,
I think they went with Gakpo.
They did. Gakpo started. Yeah, I think Gakpo started.
Because Darwin's not really a starter. I still get my head around the fact that Darwin's not really a starter.
I don't know what's going on with him.
Jota is the striker.
I feel like he's been the one that's fallen. Like Gakpo's there in amongst it. Diaz has been great. Jota, I think, is very important. I feel like Nunes is the one that's kind of on the periphery there, but that's for a conversation for another day.
No. I think it's a conversation. Like, why not have just a little bit now? Last year, I think we gave Azaz, when we were bantering with him, that was the thing we hit Liverpool. Like, oh, you spent all this money, and they're like, no, but he's getting in positions, and he's gonna be shit hot, and look at him go. And all of a sudden, he's not even starting, right? Like he's playing second fiddle. Jota, it looks like the more natural person.
He's a starter. If they're playing a Champions League final, it's going to be him, Salah, and Diaz as the front three.
Yeah.
And Jota is great front three.
Is such a good. He's that kind of signing that takes a team from maybe one day to okay, well, this is a team that's doing it now. He's like what James Milner was to Man City once upon a time. He's like this guy who's just so good and somehow won't cost you a fortune to bring into the team and can push everybody. And they're what a signing he's been for them.
Diaz has been great this season. I watched this game in its entirety, and what was like, again, I think Paul nailed it. Like, this is one of those, if you win a title or you're in a title race, you look back at this game, you're like, you know what, that was a great 3 points. We weren't good. You know who else wasn't good in front of goal? They played pretty well. They had 2 or 3, and I mean phenomenal chances, was Crystal Palace. Correction, not Crystal Park. It's Selhurst Park, Paul, that they were playing at. But even near the end, Eze had one right across, and it was like, oh, he's gonna equalize. And it was one of those where I guess you could call it a bit of a let off, but it's one of those games where you get the 3 points and you snatch and grab and you go.
I'm gonna rewind this and say that I never said Crystal Park.
I think you did. I'll bet you.
I would never even attempt to say Selhurst Park. So I would never use Park. I would
I'll
have said
bet
Crystal
you
Palace at
anything
Crystal
that
Palace.
because
I'll
this
rewind
is
it. We'll
live
put
and
some
we
money
can.
on it. We'll
You know
sidebar.
what?
We'll
You're
sidebar.
actually, guys, just to
Do you remember,
solve
Luke?
this,
Do you remember? Do you hear it?
I do. I remember hearing it said incorrectly by you and by you because it's obviously, as we know, it's actually Richmond FC. So that's the correct name. And then obviously
We'll
whatever you
check
want
the
to call
tape.
it.
I heard a Crystal
But
Park.
Crystal
but
Palace
yeah.
had they did not dominate in possession. They got blown away from
No.
possession. They did not dominate on shots, but shots on
Mm.
target. I think it was 6-5 in advantage to Crystal Palace.
Yep.
So 6 shots on target, 3 again. I thought were like sitters. Like these are fucking do not anywhere on net away from the keeper, and 3 times just straight at the keeper. Which, okay, moving into maybe a bigger conversation that came out of this game. And speaking of keepers, one of the outcomes of this game is that Allison comes off injured, and I think his hammy's done for a while. And I don't know that they come right out and said what is going to happen, but I think the managers come out and said after the international break, he still won't be available. So I think it's one of those hammies where 6 to 8 weeks potentially using
They've
their
said a few weeks.
credit. If anybody could tell me who the backup keeper is for Liverpool, I'd be amazed. I think
If it's the
is a big-
same guy they had before,
the young
he's
lad.
phenomenal. Oh, is it?
It's the young Irish keeper, isn't it, Kelleher?
Yeah, but
You tell me.
I don't see him on the bench
So,
here. Like
He was. Yeah,
was it
maybe.
Yaros?
he was ill.
In?
They're
Did I lose?
Oh yeah, no, we
Okay,
can't hear
yeah,
you.
Paul.
I was wondering, Paul. You've suddenly
Yeah, you
muted.
cut out, Paul.
I was like, am I having a stroke?
No, you're fine now.
No, you're back.
You're fine. You're not having a stroke. Everything's fine. The
So,
third
Blunt
string
says
keeper was
goalie?
on the bench.
Okay,
The third
okay.
string
And their
keeper was
backup-
on the bench today. Their backup was ill. The backup
Okay.
obviously is Luke is aware of who he is. I had very little knowledge of this guy. 'cause
He's
let's
so
face it,
good. I'm shocked he stayed at Liverpool this summer because when Allison was out a little bit last season,
he played a lot last year, Paul. I'm
but he was
surprised you don't know who he is.
fantastic.
Yeah, he was great.
I thought he would have went for a big move this summer, but
I
there are
mean,
implications there.
was Liverpool particularly good last season? Was I paying attention to them? No, not really.
That's very true.
I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
Is this going to be a blow for their? I mean, is this a blow to the title race for Liverpool to be losing such an influential keeper, a member of the squad, for an extended period of time?
What's extended
Well-
though? If it's a hamstring, it'll be max
6 to 8
4 to
weeks.
6 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks.
Could be. That's
Well,
And
I
maybe
think
it's not
also
6 to 8 weeks,
you-
but let me ask: if it is 6 to 8 weeks, which I think is the worst case scenario, is
Yeah.
that a big blow?
That's a huge blow. I think it's he leads. I think regardless of like if he's the best keeper out there or like against other keepers in the league, I think he's such a physical and vocal presence.
Yeah.
Because you have an international goalkeeper, you have a guy who's he's Brazilian #1. He's been at the club a long time. He's won a lot with them. That he leads from back to front, and I think losing that vocalness, I think could because they have. Remember, they're quite young at the back. Yes, Trent has been around a number of years, but they still have a bit of youth floating around there, and I think they're doing well leading from the back. So I would argue that yes, and I just out of interest, I was having a look at the games they've got coming up. So they've got Chelsea, Leipzig in the Champions League, Arsenal, Brighton in a EFL, and then Brighton in the league. And then they've got Villa on the 9th of November. So they've got, and Leverkusen before that. They've got extremely difficult games.
and this is why you need a good backup keeper, which they do have. So, I mean, I think this will be an opportunity for him to put himself in the shop window again. Because if he has another brilliant season as a backup, he's got to get out of here and people be saying, hey, 50 million for that guy. So if it was the third string or another guy, I'd be mega concerned, but I'm a little less concerned because of how good their backup keeper is.
Well, that for me, I mean, as soon as you said they're playing Arsenal, I'm like, okay, you gotta have your best available for that game because that's a huge 3-point game for both teams. So let's move on to Arsenal as a subject. Arsenal also played, and I believe they had yet another come from behind win, although it was against Southampton, so entirely expected to be hosting Southampton at home and getting all 3 points. But they did it in a way that I think they're demonstrating maybe character. It's so early in the season, it's hard to say, but a few times this season, I've seen them come back from behind and just get it done. And I think that's been a cause of concern for them in the past. They also played Southampton, a Premier League team, and they put out what I would call their B team, or they're not quite the best version of the starting 11. That's not been a real strong option for them to have that kind of rotation and still comfortably get it done. So for me, I can't learn too much from this game, certainly, but I am seeing signs from them this season that I have not seen in seasons past, where I still think that they should be legitimate contenders for the title this season. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we talked about it last week. I 100% think they are. My concern always, and it still is, and this is Southampton, so it kind of like I take it with a grain of salt, is scoring goals. So I think the fact you see Havertz, Martinelli, and Saka on the score sheet, great sign for Arsenal. Again, United are terrible right now, and I hate to reference them, but we played Southampton. We beat them 3-0, and we weren't even really that great on the day. So can they get the goals against the top half of the table is still a question for me. They don't have that out and out number 9. They've got guys that can rotate, but when you see these players getting on the score sheet, I think it's a great sign. I think they're going to be right up there. 3 second-half goals it's fantastic, regardless against who you're playing in the Premier League. Cameron Archer, your boy, gets the goal here too. Luke, former Villa boy, but I even with them going up 1-0 in the 55th minute, I genuinely still kind of expect them to come back and win, and they did. But it is, to Paul's point, it does show character. It's Southampton, so yes and no for me.
I think for me, not a whole lot more to add. I think there's still something missing in Arsenal, right? And where they have an opportunity this year is Man City faltering. But then you see them losing their best player, in one of the best players in the league for the last 10, 15 years in Rodri. Just the difference he makes in games surrounded by other superstars. Yeah. And yet Kovacic scores 2 goals for them.
I know.
It's just almost sickening, like how deep they are. Arsenal, I really, really, really feel should have got an actual number 9, like an out-and-out finisher. I really don't understand what. I think they talked to Tony. Maybe he wants too much money. I'm not really sure.
Wanted a lot of money.
Yeah, I think maybe his head was gone from the game a bit, but they'll be there. They will be in the conversation. Do I believe with 4 to 5 weeks left, it will be within a point or 2? I don't. I think City will start pulling away again.
But is it just goals, Luke? Do you feel the same way I feel, where it's just lacking in that number 9 position?
100%. Because watching them from the back, I think they're great.
Nobody's better.
I think they've got the best centre back pairing potentially in like some of the, if not the world,
maybe
right?
the world. Yeah,
they really are. Like,
it feels good too. It's really.
I mean, food for thought here. They are the first in the Premier League for expected goals. They are 3rd in the league for actual goals scored. They did manage to go to the Emirates grounds and score 2 goals against City. I wasn't there for when you guys did a show after it. There was a lot of talk of them capitulating and dropping a 2-1 lead, and not a lot of talk of the fact that City allowed them to walk away with a point at home, which is a huge deal, and that City needed the very last second of the game to do what they are capable of doing, but they did it in such a way that what they got was 1 point and not the usual 3. Which I still think is a big win.
The goals, though,
was
a big one. Like Calafiori's goal was a pure fluke of a goal. Like don't get me wrong, great. It was great, yeah, but he takes 9 of them. He doesn't score more than 1 of them. Like he's hitting outside of the boot, curling it with the left side into the top right corner. Like the angles that he has to. Now, but he has scored previously.
I would be more worried if that was normal for every game. But like again, their XG is very high, and when you shoot from a mile out, your XG does kind of reflect that. So I think Kai Havertz took half a season to bed in, and I think after he got to the halfway mark of last season, everybody who thought he was a waste of money, Brian Ireland, I'm talking to you, he was very, very good for them, and is still very good for them as a striker. I think that they have I mean, fuck, they have Sterling as a rotational player or a guy that can come
Yeah,
off the
yeah,
bench. And I know a lot of people are
definitely.
like, Sterling, but like, just be realistic about that. Like, that's a huge upgrade to
Yeah.
what they've had on their bench in the past. And that's a goal scoring upgrade, even though we all like to joke that he's not reliable on scoring goals. You put him against a tired left back or right back who's been running around for fucking Saka for 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a tool in the toolbox that they didn't have before. I am going to talk about Saka as well, because I think this is always something everybody kind of forgets, because we get used to these players and we get used to seeing them, and we kind of forget that the guy that you saw last year was 21, 22, 23. I think he's 23 now.
23
This
now.
guy's going to get better and better every single season until he's probably 28. I've had this conversation before. Azaz is out there in the world and he's talked shit about Saka because he compares him to Mo Salah. Well, Mo Salah is like at his elite level and at his prime when he was winning that title with Liverpool. Saka's becoming the player that Saka is going to end up being if it's better than Salah.
Oh, I think that's such a stretch of a comment, Paul. Like, even like
I said if.
you're saying that
My stretch of the
Saka
comment, by the
even
way,
you think he
I
can
haven't
have
said
a
anything. I
trajectory?
haven't said anything.
You
Like, I haven't said
alluded.
anything controversial.
You
I'm saying we
alluded.
don't know where he is yet. We don't know where he's going to end up being. He doesn't have to be better than
He's
Salah,
very
by the way. He
young.
doesn't have to be better than Salah.
No,
All I'm saying is
and he won't.
Arsenal are going to get better when he gets better. So he's the first player, I think, in Premier League season to have 2 games in a row where he created 7 opportunities and had 7 shots back-to-back games.
He's dynamite. He's dynamite.
He's
The one thing
dynamite.
he doesn't have when you talk about like Salah and even talk about Diaz, and this is why I talk about this being big. We talk about them not scoring goals and then not more so not having and yeah, they score goals. Them not having the number 9. Saka's gonna have to chip in with goals. Martinelli's gonna have to chip. Same with Havertz, and we're a guy we haven't even mentioned once, who I think was a great pickup, Trossard. Yeah, he actually, out of all of them, probably has a better eye for goal. But
100%.
they're gonna have to do it by committee. Whereas, like, again, I think the Rodri miss is huge. I think the Odegaard miss is huge for Arsenal. But you got that big beast, Holland, who is just, if you give him a sniff, he's going to score. Arsenal don't have that, so they're going to have to do it. So to Paul's point, to an extent, he's 100% right. Saka's going to have to keep going on an upwards trajectory, and it looks like he is. Because he's going to, if they want to win a title, he's going to have to chip in with goals and assists the entire season, and he's a treat to watch.
Yeah, no, I think that's fully fair. Totally agree. And I think actually, Paul, in fairness to you, that's a really good point, because you're right. We do get caught up in these kids or these players being players and forget that he is. And it is. I know what you were saying. I know Connie was quick to kind of shoot it down. I get that, but it's a fair point when you consider Salah didn't cut it. Salah was released. He was sold.
Yeah, when did he get to Liverpool? Was he 24 or 25?
I think he was even older than that.
He was older. He was at Chelsea.
When he was
Roma.
Basically when he was around Saka's age, I think, and then he went to Roma.
So he got to Liverpool.
Took a couple years.
He got to Liverpool in 2017, and he's 32 years of age now. So what's that, like 7 years ago? Yeah, so 25. Yeah, 25 is when he got to Liverpool.
Still very young. Still very young.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think was he immediate, like dominating in Liverpool?
Right away,
he was
first
immediate.
season. Yeah,
he was immediate. He was fire for Roma, and then he came into Liverpool, and he was fire right away with them.
Him and Mane just came and hit the ground running. But
Saka's
going to need to do it. That whole committee of that front 4 or 5 that they rotate, Luke nailed that. The midfield and the defense is so stable, so organized. It's going to be those games where they need to find a goal or multiple goals, and that's going to be the question mark. So, I mean, we got to see.
I look at them. Again, I'm probably the most optimistic for them. I don't see them having very many issues scoring goals when I watch them. Truthfully, I just see there's weapon after weapon after weapon when I watch them now. And I think they're competing with Man City in a big extent, to a lesser extent Liverpool. Can they be as good as Man City? I think that is a question mark that we can start talking about with Man City, because the question mark really is it a healthy Man City? Is an over-reliant Man City of one player? Is that going to be the thing that happens? Are the charges against them going to be a distraction at some point? Because at some point, Pep Guardiola's future is going to become a distraction. I would imagine, as related to any big punishment that may or may not come out of those
But how
charges.
long is that hearing going to take? Like, is that even going to be like dealt with during this season? Like, all I keep hearing is that it's going to take a long time.
I don't know, but I think the longer it takes, the
Mhm.
potential more distraction it causes.
Maybe.
And I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to be the thing, but like Pep Guardiola, he will hear how it's going. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
a pipeline for information, and I'm sure if it's not just the Pep, it's going to be the other players. And there, I just can see it being not an ideal situation to be title challenging against a improved roster of horses that are racing against you in Arsenal and Liverpool this season. And I'm ambitiously saying this because I don't want City to do another fucking title because it's
I don't think
boring.
anybody does, unless you're a City
No,
fan. Like, Luke,
nobody
are
does.
you not fed up of it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one. Yeah, I just don't think it's good for the league. But we, again, to kind of finish on Arsenal for me anyway. Like, I do think they did this last year with the goals and the wins and the 3 points. I'm going to be watching them in March and April. I'm going to put it. I think they capitulate when they get close and they're right up there. I hate to be like old school here, but I really think it's going to be a mentality. And I'm with Paul in the Arsenal camp. I think they've probably got enough scar tissue by now. And everyone's like, oh, they need experience. They've had a couple of years experience where they've climbed very close to the mountain.
Mm.
And I do feel you need to feel that pain and that struggle. They've been there. They've got a group. I'm with Paul. I think they're going to push all the way. Hopefully they can stay healthy, but we'll see.
So let's talk about Man City. They fall behind to Fulham early, and then they do what they do. Kovacic is an unlikely goal scorer. He pops in two. The final score is 3-2, but Fulham score a late goal. It 3-2 suggests it was much closer than it actually was in reality. But it's
Yeah.
Fulham and it's at home. It's not a big learning situation, the individual game. But what becomes maybe more interesting is if you look at what's been happening as a trend over the first 7 games of the season. Manchester City have conceded 8 goals. Liverpool have allowed 2. So there's a real statistical difference in terms of defensive performance between 2 of the title challengers.
Yeah.
Arsenal are also much better in that they've allowed 6, which is a difference of 2. So like, is it much better? No, it's not that big a deal. But right now you could look at the 3-horse race and you could say at very least Liverpool and Arsenal are better than Man City in terms of defense and
For sure.
defensive performance. I think that's a good foundation to really start putting some pressure on City, who I think are, the way I watch them play now, I think they're very reliant on Haaland, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. He is a fucking robot, but Kevin De Bruyne is out, and Rodri's out, and things at the back don't look as tight as they used to when Rodri was in the middle because he's the best center defensive midfield player on the planet. Yeah, they got other guys that can come in. Like, we haven't even talked about what Grealish could be doing, but those guys were the ones that were super elite. If Haaland goes down for whatever reason and this is the kind of season where if he goes down for 3 weeks and that's all he misses, if there's big games in those 3 weeks, those are points.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I smell blood in the water. I don't want to say they're not by any means favorites. I just feel like there's more of a race here this year because of the situation City are in, as well as the improved position of Liverpool as a squad with a new manager and getting certain players back up and firing, and definitely Arsenal, who I think are starting to really ramp up to the peak of what that project has been built up to be.
The Rodri thing is huge. I think Rodri should win the Ballon d'Or. But man, like to Luke's point, Kovacic stepping in, and I'm a big ask Paul 40 years. Like when he was leaving Chelsea,
Yeah.
I was screaming for Kovacic. I was screaming for him before he went to Chelsea at Real. I just loved him. For him to pop in, and I don't know if you guys saw his goals. The one goal was screamer. You're just like, are you kidding me? Because sure enough, Haaland doesn't score. He pops in with 2. I think the question is, like, we talk about Arsenal doing it by committee with the goals. I'm very much again in alignment here with Paul. I think they are very overly reliant on Haaland, and I think too many goals have left in the last couple of years. Like Mahrez popped in with goals. Why can't you think that was Alvarez? That Alvarez loss, I think, is really that could at the end of the year, if Arsenal sneak it, and again, 100 mil is 100 mil. Like it's hard to say no to selling a guy for 100 mil. That's not a nailed-on starter.
I would normally agree, but honestly, with the money that City have, I actually think it was a bad move because Alvarez looked real good. He's playing for Argentina.
yeah,
He's
he's
winning
fantastic.
international tournaments. He's a brilliant player, and he's going to develop with the team. Like and I just had a quick look while you were chatting. Do you know, even on their official website where the squad listing, they don't have another forward listed.
I
Everyone
know.
is listed. They're all midfielders. You have
It's
one,
crazy.
and that's obviously Haaland.
Yeah.
Just to throw back to we were talking about goalkeepers just quickly because I find it hilarious. Connie, if I just ask you straight, who's Man City's third keeper?
No, it's like the 40-something-year-old guy. He's been there for like 10 years. And like they let him,
Ex-United.
yeah, they let him play like one game in preseason. And they just keep him on contract. Like it's
They
almost
do.
like a running joke, but he loves being there. What's his name again? Oh, I
Paul,
can't think I can't think of his name. I
Third
know
keeper for City.
third
it
keeper,
might even be fourth.
United.
Is it third? Is he the third choice?
I think he's third choice. I think there's
He
only
might
three
even
now.
be fourth.
But he's
Ah,
after Stefan Ortega. So you've got Ortega second, and then you've got
you're gonna
ex
say it.
United, ex England international.
He's old.
Yeah,
I
played.
know. I know it starts with a C. I have a C in my head.
It sees the end name. Even another 10 seconds. Because we are live and this is a podcast. Well,
Just give it to us.
Scott Carson.
Scott Carson. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm not.
I don't even think of him as being ex-United.
I'm not really as worried
Yeah.
about the defense as maybe Paul is. I think, like, yeah, you know what? Uncharacteristically, they have given up more goals than usual. I think they will be okay, but like, I mean, they had that Oscar Bob injury at the beginning of the year. He looked like a really good guy in preseason,
Yeah.
like a young talent. It's the same thing. It's that the reliance on Haaland, and think about how good Rodri was down the stretch. He was like so. Odegaard, I don't know when
He was
Odegaard's
clutch.
coming back, but
Rodri was the reason why their defense was so good so often.
yeah,
But also, if they were like late in a game and they needed somebody to win it,
and
he
he
was
pop
one
up.
of the three guys that could do that
He scored their
on the
Champions
Reds.
League goal the year before in the
Yeah,
treble. Like
you could have
Rodri
an
is,
amazing game and be shutting down Haaland, and Rodri from outside the box would do that
yeah.
3 times a season in the Premier League since he joined. I think he's a big loss. It's something we're not learning anything new here. Again,
Yeah.
them being in a
Yeah.
title, obviously, of course.
Is this back-to-back games
Every
that
week I
Haaland
just
has
feel like
not scored?
we're trying to find like little kinks in the armor to say that they're not as strong as they should be or could be, because we're trying to manifest it as a reality, and I'm okay with that for now. The other thing I guess we could talk about, just going down through the scores, because this is just like a weird. If you're going to talk about something weird in the Premier League, I like this one a lot. Brentford beat
Well, just
Wolves
actually, I have a
5-3.
tiny fun fact for you just before we move on.
Sure.
Garvadol played 90 minutes. Great player. We all know he's the second most
100
expensive
mil.
player in history. Yeah.
He scored goals.
200,000 a week. I'm speaking to my best friend who's flying back to Croatia to go back to his girlfriend. And he's like, I think I just saw Garvadol waiting for a Ryanair flight. It's delayed to Croatia. And he's like, no, that can't be real. And then he gets on, he messages me, it's 100% Garvadol. He's got the hoodie on. And I've just given him a little nod to know, and now he looks petrified that I'm going to reveal who he is. Garvadol making 200,000 a week. God bless that young Croatian boy.
Great
is still
player.
going, no, I'm going to take a £45 flight to Croatia with Ryanair.
Nice.
This brought to you by Ryanair. Ryanair,
Exactly.
the most expensive soda you can buy on a flight.
I've seen some
Ryanair.
shit on a Ryanair flight, man. It's the wild, wild west on those.
Yeah, but it's £7 for a flight to
the
Europe.
best.
So who am I to judge?
Glasgow to Dublin. Ryanair, £7. This is wild. 4 games in a row.
Crazy.
Brentford managed to score a goal within the first 90 seconds. First time it's ever been done in the Premier League. What the fuck is this? It's so weird. I love it, but I mean,
So cool.
it's so
They're
cool. It's
unbelievable.
Am
wild.
I the only one who loves their manager, Thomas Frank?
No,
I
love him.
like, and I know we'll probably talk about United later, but like, you know, the personalities, the Klopp, like the Mourinho, the Pep. This guy's got it, as the kids would say. He's got the riz, and I just like everything about him. Like, he's very passionate. He's worked up. He's very organized too. I wonder if someone's going to be knocking on his door. Like, just I know Brentford's a Premier League club, but maybe not necessarily in the Premier League, but a higher tier, I guess, club. Maybe come knocking on his
the
door.
riz.
He's got the
He's
riz.
got the riz.
He fully does, man.
Just He's got the Riz. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But Wolves do not have the Riz. They have not won a game in
No.
the Premier League this season.
They're going
They're
down.
big trouble.
They did so well for so long and chipped and chipped and chipped and lost and lost and lost a player. Like, I still think they're a Premier League team, and I think they're going to save themselves at some point. It's very early in the season. 3 points makes a massive difference because it's 7 games in. But
Who do you?
I don't think it happens without manager change. I think we're at that point right now where there's conversations going to happen about changing managers.
Very soon. He'll be the first one to go.
Well, they've actually come out. I think they've come out and doubled down and said they're going to give him time. I think they're already saying that they're going to give him
always say
time.
that.
And the thing is, to your point, Paul, yes, I think they will try and dig, but I also look at the table and go, who can I see going down? Ipswich, yeah. Southampton, yeah. And then there's a third team. And currently in the third drop point is Crystal Palace. No, they'll pick up points. Everton, I think, will scrape it again, stay up. I think Leicester will stay up. I think Leicester have got enough to them. United are in 14th, right? And then you got Bournemouth, who are flying pretty well. Brentford, not like I don't know who's going to replace them. I genuinely think Wolves could be done. I really do.
Southampton, for me, nailed on or going down.
100%.
I think Ipswich will be there. So you're right. It's going to be them fighting between Crystal Palace. And I think Everton's going to. Bournemouth maybe could do a slip.
They could.
They could.
Yeah,
but Wolves need to get going like now.
I think when Everton get their annual point deduction, they'll be in the mix as well. I think we can all agree sooner or later they've done something from 4 years ago that will cost them some sort of penalty. They've got 1 win on the season as well. So again, as you look at this, just be aware that Leicester's got 1 win. Everton had 1 win. The standings are misleading. Look at the points. The points are all very compressed. 7 games in, to be expected. But let's talk about Leicester. Leicester, I thought, were a bit fortunate to have a 1-0 against Bournemouth. Very basketball-like finish towards the end there. They got it done. They got the 3 points. You got to do that if you want to stay up. That's their first win of the season. Before they picked up this win, I think there was 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League who were without a win. So somebody was bound to pick up some sort of win at some point. But I missed them. I was happy to bring them back. I love seeing Jamie Vardy again. I love Leicester.
So do I.
I just think they're great. I was rooting for him. It was like one of those games where I'm like, I'm invested in Bournemouth not doing this, and I'm invested in Leicester winning and getting 3 points out of this. But there's some championship level stuff happening as well at Leicester. Like there was some things where I was like, this defending is close your eyes and hope for the best.
Correct.
It was you can only do that for so long before you're going to get smashed a few times, I think, in this league. Then we can move on to the next game, which was West Ham against Ipswich. I think this one cannot be a surprise. Ipswich, they do okay some games. Those are the games where they just seem to be really just holding on to like by the bottoms of their nails to hold on to a point. At moments in this game, it felt like that, but kudos and a few other players like Antonio, I think had like a massive game for West Ham in terms of production. Just too much, but not saying anything about West Ham. I didn't learn anything new about West Ham watching this game either. It was just more of a always bet against Ipswich and always pick your fantasy players if they're playing against Ipswich was what I learned from this game.
You think the laps worth a shout in fantasy or no?
No,
I'm not on board.
I don't think I like them, but I think this is a showcase for looking pretty good, but not being productive for him this season. Yeah. Everton draw Newcastle in what I thought was a bit of a surprise. My favorite moment of this game was former Everton player Gordon has a chance to step up against Pickford from the penalty spot. And Pickford saves that motherfucking ball. And Gordon can slink into the ground 4 or 5 feet because it was the sweetest moment Everton fans have had this season at their own home grounds. And it was watching a former player who left them for a big club, air quote, get stuffed by a goalie from the line. That's the best they could do all season. That's the most exciting thing they had all season. Everton are not good. They're so bad.
They're really not.
I've never seen a team that should be much better than this just be okay with conceding so much possession.
Mm-hmm.
and still not really be a counter-attacking team. It's just conceding possession with no, but this is how we're going to catch you. We're going to sucker punch you. We're going to do it deliberately so you don't see us coming. It's not. It's just hang on for dear life for as much as you can and hope that
Luke's
Pickford can
all
save
in
you.
on McNeil saving them this season. You will love McNeil, don't you?
I did say that last week. Yeah, I really think there's very little talent in that Everton team. They played us a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, like Dwight McNeil leads the charge moving forward. Like there's a couple of okay players there, but I don't know. I'm just kind of sick of Everton. I'm like sick of their finances. I'm sick of like, and I like, I kind of I feel for them a little bit, but also they're insufferable, so I don't. And I actually think a championship relegation would do one of two things for Everton. It would either be a beautiful rebirth and allow them to really sort whatever's going on behind it, because it is a mess behind the scenes, or it would capitulate, and I think they could be like the next. I don't know who had a massive
Leeds
fall from grace.
went all the way
Leeds
down.
or
Sunderland.
or Nottingham Forest, didn't they?
Yeah.
They from European champions all the way plummet.
Mhm.
So I think time will tell with Everton. But you know, a 0-0, it's okay. It's a point, I suppose. But I think they're going to really struggle to pick up points. Really
Yep.
struggle, especially if Calvert-Lewin doesn't start scoring more.
I think you're right. My only thing I would point out is I like Calvert-Lewin.
I do. Yeah.
I just think you put it's amazing the scraps he can feed off of and still have moments in a game where he does something. He's so good in the box. He's a real poacher, fox in the box type. Great with his head. I think if you put him on any of the top, and like literally any of the top 6 teams as just an option off the bench, just the occasional rotational starter, I think he bangs in a few goals. I think he's available on the cheap if they go down, or if they even like have another season that's just trash. But he's injury prone, so I get why nobody would want to try to get him.
Stay fit. Yeah.
I think he's potentially a free agent this summer. So he's the only guy I kind of watch and go, he's got something about to him. But otherwise, I'm watching Ashley Young play out of position week in week in when I watch Everton, and that's
unbelievable.
Just traumatic stress.
He's
that's like a trauma for me to watch that. What I'm going to point out about Newcastle is that this is, a pretty bad run of form by what is expected from them. They're not the first. There's many teams with bad runs of form right now that should be doing better, but they've had a loss and then 2 draws in a row. And I think Isaac has been injured for that run as well. And I think Callum Wilson's also been unavailable. So goal score is maybe an issue, but
yeah,
I think even in the back line, they don't look great.
No.
So they're interesting to me because it felt like they were onto something. They were bringing in players. They brought in Tonali. They brought in Gordon. They were building,
Barnes.
and then it just kind of went stopped. And now they're much better than they were, but they're not getting anywhere either. And they had to get better than they were just so that they could at least potentially play in European competitions from time to time and be able to compete. So I don't know what to make of Newcastle this season. I don't know if I expect them to just be kind of like 7-8 spot, or if they're going to tidy it up at some point and really make a run. But
I think we're minimizing the Isaac injury. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the way he finished the season, even the way he started. He's like, for me, he's like a top 4, top 5 striker in the league. I think he's phenomenal. And when I watch Newcastle, like, I love Bruno G in the middle. I think, I'd do anything to have him on my team. He's so class. But they don't look potent going forward.
No.
Like, they don't. Like, they look like they're missing him. Like, when he's there, he's such a threat. I like Gordon. Barnes is having a good season. But kind of like we talked about Arsenal. Barnes is great, but Isaac is so good, and I feel like they're missing him quite a bit.
They're going to struggle the next couple of weeks. They've got their next 3 games after the international break are Brighton, who obviously look great, Chelsea and Arsenal, right? So 3 losses, whereas Everton have to come back off the break and pick up some points. Otherwise, by the end of November, Everton could have almost sealed their death wish, because their next game, their games are Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton, West Ham, Brentford, Man United, and Wolves. Like, you have to be picking up. But that is the easiest run in the league. Like,
they got to be like 13th, 14th by the end of that if they want to.
Probably higher. Like, you need them. So we'll see.
Newcastle have the 6th worst or 7th worst XG in the Premier League right now.
Yeah.
Which is you're in and around like the Ipswich territory, the Everton territory, like you're in the relegation territory. And they do have more firepower than that, and they are better coached than that.
Yeah.
I don't need them to be top 6 or top 7, but like to be that low, with, again, I have to always say this, 7 games in, these stats are always a little bit weird because you could have way harder fixtures than another team just over 7 games, and that could have a huge impact on all kinds of stuff.
They're 3 points off of being in 4th. Like, I don't think it's, I think we just, I don't know.
And that's a table thing. And the stats
Yeah.
also get affected the exact same way, where it's like, it can feel like wildly off, but like you could play 2 more games and then you're right back in the middle if you play the 2 teams that suck. Speaking of teams that suck, not a great showcase for anybody, particularly today when Aston Villa hosted Dave and my Man United to a 0-0 draw. Player of the match, probably the most telling thing I could say about this game. Player of the match was 36-year-old Johnny Evans.
Jesus.
Which is accurate. I mean, all 3 of us, I'm assuming,
had a great game.
He
had a great game.
Best player on the pitch.
I'm like, he had a great game.
Yeah.
And I think we've watched him long enough to know, like, he's still capable of having a great game. If the game script puts him in a situation where he can get involved a lot, he's capable of doing a lot. It's just if you had him start over 10 games, disaster. Just for the occasional game here and there, fine.
I think he's tried and tested, right? I think Johnny Evans he's a stalwart professional, right? At this age, he's 37, so fair play to him, and I'm sure he's listening in. Johnny, congratulations! 400th league game, so that's like what a telling time to win. But like I'm gonna flip this. I think I want to hear you guys do Villa and I'll do United. So we got into it a little bit in the chat. I haven't seen many United games, right? I watched the Villa. I barely get time to watch some of those at the moment. I do try and keep up. And I know we've talked about Ten Hag. We know, and we've seen it the last couple of years. I cannot remember a time where I've seen such a lackluster, uninspired, and just all-round miserable-looking Manchester United. In the time I've been watching football, it was.
How is it possible though? Like, were you not watching when Ralph Ragnick was in charge at all, or at the
no? I was
4 months of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Like, there's been 100% worse performances recently.
I don't think
than what you saw at Aston Villa.
Spurs the week before was 10 times worse than this.
Oh my god, yeah. I'm like,
no, but
I know what you're saying, but it's being very.
No, but I wouldn't.
It's sensationalistic what you're saying.
No,
very
but
I wouldn't say Ragnick was worse. You can say Ragnick.
I don't know what his basis is.
Now, let me ask you a question though, Luke. Are you talking about them as a whole today, or are you talking more so about their attack?
I'm talking about the whole club being rotten from bottom to top. Every part of United just doesn't look inspired. This is one of the most.
Hang on. Are you reacting to the game today? Because now you're talking about the club and rot.
No, I think he's talking about the game.
Of course. I'm talking about the game, but this is not. I don't think this is an issue now with.
I've heard this a lot today. I don't get it. But our defense was fine today. Like, our defense was arguably good.
No, I disagree.
So I'll give you my thing. I like Aston Villa. I think you guys have got like a very competent striker. I think you've got competent wingers. I think you've got a competent midfield. We were on your grounds today, and I cannot really remember any opportunities falling to any of your players. So for me, and I'm a very simplistic guy.
They had the best chance of the game, though, like right near the end, off the Lowe's back. I think they probably should have put that in.
Whatever, fine.
Outside of that,
I'm a very simplistic guy. It's like there's two different kinds of versions of the game. There's the defensive side, and then there's the offensive side. I don't know if anybody can I don't know where anybody would criticize the defensive side of today's effort for Man United.
Because
then when we have a pretty good defensive game against a team that I do think is quite good and is capable of scoring goals.
But this is I don't agree with this though, Paul, because you weren't good defensively. We were dreadful going forward.
That's okay. So that's where I'm at. So today, you know what's crazy? I obviously
we were.
I wasn't thrilled. Hold on a second. I wasn't thrilled with
what's in front of you, though.
We're better than Villa today, and I actually thought, and I know, and I think it's very important for us to note that Villa beat Bayern Munich last week. That's probably, you know, how your comment about United, and United haven't been good lately. They've been bad. And we can talk about that, but that's the most lackluster Villa performance I've seen in a while, and they've been brilliant. They were, and I think I said it like an actual shade of themselves. They looked borderline like a championship team. Like, and I mean, we need to call it out. Terrible injury to Konza early on, which is great player, but they had nothing. And they actually like, and I know what you're saying, and I think I'm somewhere in between you guys. Like, yeah, Paul, it's hard for me to sit here and say that you said that they played well. They didn't have anything to defend. As much as we were terrible, United going forward, Villa were this. It's maybe
I'm almost not even saying they played well. I'm almost just saying
they didn't have anything to do.
What I'm probably reacting to more than anything is a very sensationalistic claim of I've never seen a worse Man United side than this. I'm like, their defense was not bad today. And I know you're saying, well, it was an off night for us, so we can't really judge your defense. I'm like, well, then that's more on you guys than it is on us. We can only defend whatever you guys are putting.
Let's go from back to front. The only thing that I see that really kind of gives me any form of excitement about Manchester United, which really you should be linking Man United and excitement, is Onana. I think Onana's actually developed into a really good goalkeeper.
I thought next to Johnny Evans, Mazraoui was probably the best player on the pitch. Like, and again, I'm totally sensitive to the fact that Villa had a huge win. And listen, we've all seen it in football. You come off a massive win, you're traveling, you come back, you're shattered, and you just listen. I say it about anyone and everything, not just football. Everyone's entitled at a bad day at the office. We've all had them, whether you're a professional footballer here. Villa had a really bad day. So here's where I'll kind of take the angle in Switzerland.
Why did Villa have a bad day?
They were terrible.
I know. But like, this has been the theme of the day. Villa had a bad day. Move on to how bad United were. Why can we not just talk about like
how
Villa get off so lightly?
My point, Paul,
I'm genuinely asking because
he is right. Like there should be an indictment on Villa. They were like out of a bad game. They were the less good team. Like if someone put a gun to your head and you had to say who was the marginally better team, you would watch it and you'd pick United.
Can I answer that? Why I genuinely believe this to be true, and I think you're absolutely spot on. I'm going to say something, and it's going to seem crazy, but I think it's the truth. Villa have not started well. I know it seems like we're doing well,
man.
Correct, but a lot of people.
Somebody finally said something.
Hey, listen, we were 2-0 down against Everton. You take away John Duran's glorious goals. That's one player.
Good point.
Watkins is not firing well, doesn't look fit. McGinn's out injured. Anana's out injured. Kamara's missing. Mings is missing. Dia's still being leaped in. Now we've lost. Like this Villa team is Matty Cash was out for a number of weeks. We had no right back, but it's where we were good last year was Watkins. Watkins was like his highest tally of all time. He has not hit
one game or 2 games where he's hit the goals. He's had 1 or 2 games.
That's it. And then since that, he still does not. And someone's just saying here, Duran is keeping them relevant. He absolutely. If you take away Duran has 4 out of the 7 or 8 games he's played, he's scored the winning goal for us. That's insane, right? We were going to take a point against Everton. We were going to another I can't against. What was the other one? You scored the absolute screamer again as well. Like he's literally carrying us. So I think there are actually issues at Villa, and I love Unai. I won't say a word against him, but we haven't quite reappeared from the summer, and Watkins especially hasn't found his speed. Now we do have signs that I still think more just. My point though about United is simple. I don't see United week in week, so I'm kind of telling you from the games I've seen United play. Even when you made substitutions, there was a disillusionment. There was a lack of cohesion, right? Xerxes played a ball to no one. Anthony came on. Wild. Anthony probably would look like one of the most.
Yeah. So
I thought he was the most lively offensive player, and he maybe only played 20 minutes.
Yes.
I don't know. Is it news to you? Is it news to you that Man United are not particularly good right now? Like they're in a slump.
No, but
what you just said to me
not good.
Actually more interesting because I don't expect Man United to be in any kind of real race this year.
But 600 million in 4 years, you should be. That's the point.
Again, though.
Yeah.
This is what we need to talk about on this show because I don't think we haven't gotten it from Paul yet. Let's switch it to Paul.
No.
What are your expectations for them?
If anybody, well, first of all, every single time Man United play a game, it feels like we always have to talk about how much money was spent and how it's not on the field. Like it's news. Like somebody just found out about it.
But it's
not
relevant.
relevant when it's constant. Was there 600 million worth of value on the field today, or yet like during the game?
A bunch of them didn't start, and now we're talking about the manager because he clearly didn't.
You're talking about legacy stuff. You're talking about Woodward. You're talking about the other people. Like you're talking about the dead weight. Like the that's got nothing to do with the stuff that happens on the field. But I'm not prepared to move off of Aston Villa yet because again, everybody just wants to.
No, yeah, I want you to go back to Villa. Yeah,
I did not realize until I just looked at it that your games that you've actually won this, like you've played pretty much all the relegation fodder candidates.
That's what I mean.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
And then you played West Ham, and I think Duran maybe saved you in that game.
He did,
and you played, frankly, a kind of out of form, not really kicking off yet Man United to a draw. So.
Right.
I am now starting to wonder what will happen when you start playing against better teams. Losing 2-0 to Arsenal, I can't judge you for. I expect you to lose to Arsenal. No.
But we should have done
judgment
more.
On that.
Actually, we had the first 55 minutes of that game. We dominated that game. Morgan Rogers was going through Declan Rice and Partey with ease. It was crazy. Watkins missed sitter after sitter. We're not the cohesion that we had that kind of got us to where we got last year is not there right now. And I think it's only now that actually we're having this conversation, we're starting to maybe see what you've just said is a really valid point. At 1 point from Ipswich, we were in a bad way against Wolves. We were terrible. 45 minutes. Unai said it was the worst 45 he's managed. We almost lost to Everton, and the other one he dug us out of. We've been saved by Duran, and as a team, we've not played particularly great. We've conceded in every game. Like we've gone down almost every week. And it's like, hang on a minute. Like, what is happening here? And that
was it injuries though? Because I mean, I was surprised McGinn wasn't playing today. It seems like there was a defensive shuffle.
Onana, I like Onana a lot.
Onana, injured. McGinn injured. Boubacar Kamara injured. Obviously Konza, which
now
frightens me. Hopefully it's just a couple of weeks, but we're missing a lot of key players. And obviously, remember we lost Dougie Luiz. And we're still trying to replace that. So the guy that we brought in to replace him is out injured. Yeah, he's brilliant, So I think time will tell. I think, as you said,
it makes me want to pay a little bit more attention to like the upcoming fixtures because now I'm 100%. Like,
let's see if we're the real deal. Because Bayern could have been a fluke.
But I thought with the way you guys were playing today, to your point, Luke, I thought the United and even the way the game started, I was like, oh man, United has the impetus because I don't think anyone expected it with United's form and obviously the big.
I honestly thought Harry Maguire, Johnny Evans against again. I think you got some attack. I was like, oh, this is going to be trouble. But it never, and that's why I was genuinely surprised by, it's not disrespect necessarily, but the idea that they didn't do a good job by having a quiet day against your attackers because your team was playing bad. It kind of takes the accomplishment out of them when I thought our center back certainly had a good day. Like I thought Harry Maguire until he got injured was fine. And then Johnny Evans
much to do.
You
got to be honest. You got to be realistic.
And again, I'm not putting anybody on a shelf. I'm not using this game as our defense is actually pretty good. 4 clean sheets out of 7. Our defense is pretty good. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying on the balance of the game, I don't necessarily understand the degree to which everybody's being so negative, but also it feels like people just like, were you guys not paying attention? Like it's not particularly good time right now.
But I'm telling you from my side as a non-United supporter, watching a legacy team.
Right, but that's the problem I have with your points are always like, but it's Man United. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Look at the squad.
Everyone's saying that, but for the last 10 years, it hasn't.
It's 10 years of that.
But he is right with the amount of money that they spend compared to other teams, Paul, over year. That
totally, and we've had so many hours of talking about it. Like,
well, you do this, you get so defensive, and you're missing the points. Okay, I'll bang.
What do you think?
Here we go. 600 million spent in 4 seasons, and you look worse than when he started. You're a publicly traded company, right? You are one of the biggest sports franchises in the entire world. You are a team that has won countless trophies, and every manager was a problem. And it was Ten Hag's tenure right now. This is the most boring football. This does not feel like the Disney Man United. This doesn't feel like the dreamy Man United because you're still a huge team, right? And
nothing
you have
you're saying is wrong or new.
But the point is, he should be gone. I think if he's still your manager,
that's what you're really trying to get to.
No, it's not.
Let's
I'm just
talk about
telling
that.
you.
Let's just
My
talk about
point is
that. I mean,
watching.
you want to talk about that? Let's talk about that. Everything
Let's
else
talk.
is
But why don't
observation.
you talk
That's
to us
not new
about that?
observation.
Because where are you at with the manager?
Somebody tell me who should come in to replace him.
Even
all I've ever
anyone.
said.
even if it's Ruud van
Anyone.
Nistelrooy
Yeah.
for now, what I think is going on with his team is you have a team of players who are not doing what he wants them to do. They're not playing. Did you see Rashford when he came on today? People lip readers had him saying he's gone mad, referring to Erik Ten Hag. There's clearly not any cohesiveness. It's the manager's job to get the team playing. We've seen Emery do it with Villa. We've seen what's his face do it with Arsenal. We're 2.5 years in now. The football that they're playing is real, and he keeps hiding behind these 2 trophies in 2 years. Don't get me wrong, super happy about the football today, and the football this season has been subpar at best. It falls on him. He's brought in a lot of players.
Who do you bring in?
I would love Thomas Tuchel. I'd love Julian Nagelsmann, but more than anything, he has got to go, because I even think Ruud van Nistelrooy could say, you know what, boys, listen. He's 100%. Played the game. Maybe they'll listen for at least a period. It's clear that they're just like, you're not our guy anymore. And
I think you're asking for my opinion.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Box, it's a rant.
I want to hear
it. I just do not think anybody who has a position of anybody but him is making any sense. I just don't know how any club can be improved by anybody but this guy.
Okay,
that's not
how long?
Good decision.
How many more of these games? How many more drop points, like losses or ties, and similar football to what we've seen today?
Find an alternative.
How many more?
Find an alternative.
I just gave all I'm asking for. I'd be very happy with Tuchel. I'd be very happy with Nagelsmann. They're big personalities.
Nagelsmann's not an option unless you wait.
I'd be happy with Tuchel. I know a lot of people think there's pros and cons.
Nagelsmann is not an option. I think Nagelsmann would be great, but he's got a job. He's Germany.
So let me ask you a question. So you don't think there would be benefits? You don't think there would be benefits if you removed him and you say Ruud van Nistelrooy as interim manager? You don't think that would galvanize the team, at least for a period, maybe a couple of months, while ownership does recruit a replacement? I think that is what they have to do. This group of players isn't playing for this manager. Do we not agree? Did you see some of the attacking efforts today? It's like they're fucking sleeping instead of playing football. Like Garnacho, that's the worst I've ever seen Garnacho play.
You're very quick to say that they're not playing for a manager when they're playing like shit.
I don't think they are, man. They're not like he wants
the second half of they're 10 men down against Spurs. They're down. The second half, they were vastly better. They
for about
wanted
15
it.
Minutes.
But they were better and they wanted it. That's not a tools down situation. They blew a lead against Porto and they came back and drew it. That's not a tools down situation. So
I think Rashford was trying to get sent off today with that little kick. He didn't even go near the ball. He just kicked the guy.
Then we're back to what we always said we wanted to change at United, and that's player power, and that's another manager getting thrown under the bus by fucking like players who are doing stupid shady shit.
Well, let's talk about tactics,
it's
Paul.
Very
Bruno Fernandes plays week in, week out, and he's been terrible. Why does he keep getting to play instead of somebody else?
That's. I'm going to say a couple things here. Let me hear you out. Who's the second best manager in the Premier League right now, in your opinion?
Unai Emery.
Arteta. I would think it's Arteta.
Okay, so Luke, you say Emery.
I'd say Emery.
He's better than Arteta.
Okay. Then I'm gonna ask the following question based on the same principle. Do you think he's always been the same manager? Like he's a very good manager. Any Premier League team would be lucky to have him.
Who? Arteta?
Unai?
Emery.
Or Emery. Emery's been good for a while.
Okay. So he did not work out at Arsenal. Was he a bad manager at Arsenal?
No, because you see,
would they, in your opinion, be better off if they had stuck with him during the bad period? No, I mean, honestly, question: if they had stuck out with him, would he have gotten them to the place, if not better, than what Arteta did?
Without a shadow of a doubt, yes. Because let me tell you, he had one season.
I will remind everybody that at the time, everybody was very happy with saying Emery out. He doesn't have it. They don't have it. All the same shit that's being said about this man.
No, because listen, he was the first guy after Wenger.
We were saying it was on the show.
Yeah, he was the first guy after Wenger, right? And in the same way that I think Moyes actually would have done a good job at United as well. I've said this. Unai, if you look at Unai in Arsenal, he had one season. He finished a position higher than they had the year before, and he got them into a final they should have won in his one season. So I think this comparison of, Ten Hag has been consistently poor, right? And
we finished third in his first season.
That's not true. Again, that's what I'm saying. This idea that he's consistently poor. It's like everybody gets his first season.
No, sorry. I mean in the last 2 seasons. Sorry,
last season was bad. 8th was really bad.
7 games into this season.
the issue, Paul, is very simple, and sometimes you get very defensive on this, and it's not about do I think there's a better out there? Do I think this? I listen to him giving interviews, and it's like it's like you and I looking at the same picture and seeing two totally different pictures. Right? It's like a Rorschach test because the reporters are saying, "What do you think?" And he's like, and then he's going back to, "Well, after Man City, no one's won as many trophies as we have." It's like,
Right.
hang on a minute.
I find it a little
point-
patronizing when
he
he does.
doesn't-
And
he
it's
doesn't-
like,
Let me move on to my second
performance.
point then.
Yeah.
Let me move on to my second point. That's my first point. Let me
Cool.
move on to the second point. Conversation more for
2
you.
points.
You hate Bruno Fernandes.
It's not that I hate him. I used to love him. I think his
No, but like
he's doing a decline
you
right
do
now.
You do not think he's a very good player anymore.
I think he's on a very
want him
heavy
sat.
decline. No,
You want him
I think.
sat.
Oh, I think he absolutely needs to sit for at least a game or two.
Right.
I hope
You're
he can
not
get back to
overly
form.
enamored with Rashford.
No, I'm not. I don't. I think
You
him
are
not
now
even.
under realization that Rashford's not the Rashford of old.
I don't know that Rashford's ever going to be the level that I think that we should be aspiring to. So no, I don't.
Yeah.
Do you now accept that Garnacho is probably not the wonder kid that you quite thought he was going to end up being?
Still young. He's still
No, I
young,
think
but
he's still great.
he's very slight. I think he's got to put on some muscle today. And again, everyone's entitled to a bad day. He was the worst player on the pitch today by a
But like
country
you are
mile.
now maybe starting to
You
see
think?
maybe closer to the reality of the player that he is.
No, he's got a lot
And
of strong. He's got a lot of attacking
I
ability.
know, but like
He
you
can
have a
score
sense of
goals.
what he is. He's still
I'd like.
very
He
much a work in
needs
progress.
to play in this
Be
league.
kind.
He's a young guy. He definitely needs to put on more muscle. You could say the same about Ahmad. There's no really excuses for Marcus. Bruno, Bruno's been doing this, but he
I'm
starts
going one by
every
one
week.
here, man.
Yeah.
Hoyland, do you
Okay.
think Hoyland is an accomplished 20-year? Like, do you think he is currently ready to score 20 goals a season?
No, but start him every week. You know why? He's one of few guys who runs through a brick
I am
wall
just
and
going
will
through
do it all.
I'm just going through the players because
I love
they're the
him.
ones who
I
play the game.
love Hoyland.
Xerxes,
I thought
do you think Xerxes, when he was
No.
available, we had to rely on him a lot the 7 games this season?
Xerxes
he's
going to
Premier League
struggle in the Premier League. The pace is too much for
Honey
him.
pie.
Yeah, and
Do you think Eriksson is
said
past it?
Eriksson.
100%.
I like Eriksson this season. I think he's
Do you
been
think you can
actually
rely on him to the level that we're currently relying on him?
nope.
Safely?
But you know what? You can rely on him more than Bruno right now.
Do you think it's important for a team to have access to actual left backs?
Yeah, but Delo has been doing a decent enough job. He's just had a bad.
Yeah, I
couple
think
of
Delo's
weeks.
one of your best players
Yeah.
on the pitch.
He's had a bad.
Does
Cool, I
anything
think-
I just
what's the
described
point?
sound like the issues of a club that was 600 million to assemble it?
You know what? The lineup they had out today, again, not really my favorite starting lineup, but if you look at the bench and you look at the squad, hold on, you can get a tune out of those players. And I do think, like, when we would talk about the past, whether it was Ole or Mourinho, Paul and I would often be like, man, the squad's not good enough. I actually think the squad, this is kind of my issue with Ten Hag. I think the squad has improved dramatically. I do like a lot of signings. Mazraoui looks great. I'm still in on Delit. I still think, he can figure it out. But we've got
for
better
sure.
players. I think Ugarte will come good. But it doesn't look, and I know everyone talks about, well, what's the style? I don't care about the style, but like my issue with like general effort or cohesion and position, and when you don't see any of that, I ultimately think that falls on the coach, and I haven't seen any of that for like a long time under him. And you know when we did
But
see
my
it,
point
Paul,
about my
the
ultimate
first
point about the
season,
squad is-
season we were moving around, and you could see some sort of game that he had with the left backs moving up from the back. Luke Shaw, Bruno was firing, good movement, scoring for them. Like first season, you're like, okay, we're in third. This is starting to go somewhere, but it went like this, Paul.
Yeah.
And you hide behind 2 trophies.
Right.
You have to admit the football this year has been
But can I get to my
actually
point?
unacceptable.
So do you think we have
What is the point?
a 5 or 6 squad, like compared to the
I
rest
think
of the league?
between like 5 and 7.
I
season.
say this because people will say the money value of it, like that matters, but like put names and faces, like
let's say
actually
Ruben
does play
or
for the
somebody
squad.
else came in. I think they
He
could get
does-
us to like 5th or 6th with this
I
group.
just, but
Luke,
he,
it only matters if the money was well spent.
but it wasn't.
So again,
some of
why
them
is
this
that-
summer, we don't know yet.
No,
Like Mazraoui
listen,
was 12
you-
million. He's brilliant. Delit could
Okay.
come good. Ugarte could come good.
I like our
we still have
signing.
some young
I
guys.
like our signing.
I'm
just
not
like,
sure on
I
Xerxes.
think I just have a
I
better
don't think on
sense.
Xerxes. I don't think
This is
spending that
squad
much on
that I
Hoyland
do
was the
not
idea. I just
Ultimately,
think
what I'm
Hoyland,
gonna
I
say
think,
is
could
it's
come
a
good,
squad.
but he's
This is a
not a
squad that I
starting
think
striker.
is significantly lacking in quality across the board. I think there's massive holes still in the squad. I think
Okay.
any manager would struggle to get a tune out of this on a
And-
consistent
Don't
basis.
So
you
who-
think
so
a
you're
gonna
manager
get
could do
games
more
where we're
with this
good.
group? Don't you
I
think
think
another
games
manager
were good and the
more
games
with our
were really
overall
bad.
group? Like Collier, Maine, like you don't think another manager could
I
get
mean,
more out of this?
that's another
group?
example. It's
I
like
do.
Collier as a kid.
I like him.
But I'm
I think you
confused.
give any manager more time than he's got now, he'll do better with players.
So let's
Ugati's
ask the
had
question. Let's ask the question
a
then. Do
minute to
you
better.
think? Do you think? So we're sticking with Ten Hag on your
I
thing,
think
right?
I
Like
think
Luke and I
yeah.
disagree.
I would
Do you
look at the
think?
upcoming fixtures, and I would
Okay.
say it gets a lot easier coming up.
Okay.
Get out of the international break.
Okay.
If they have a guy in mind, I don't mind if they make a change.
Okay.
If they actually have somebody in mind, but right
Do
now
you
there's
think he needs more
there's
time
one dude
and
on the
more
list.
players? Like, do you think
I
different
think
players?
if I was them, I'd be like, international break, work with the players that you have, get certain players up to speed, get certain players healthy.
Okay.
Your Premier League fixture list gets a lot easier moving forward.
Okay.
And then I put markers down in what terms of expectations are for points out of those games.
Okay, and that's
if
fair.
If they don't start assembling a run of wins,
Okay.
like, yeah, I want to see performances and stuff. But if I'm in charge, I'm like, I need to start seeing points on the board here.
What's
I
Paul's
need
point? So, like Luke and I and many others are already, and again, you could say we're snapping our fingers too quickly, and I get all that. What is Paul's like? Let's say this is we're at the beginning of October. Let's say before we go into the Christmas period, we're in the exact same position. Like, what's your breaking point maybe this year?
Oh, fuck. If they lose in the Premier League fixture list that they have coming up, the 4 games they have, if they don't win 3 of those 4, I'm like, fine. Like,
You're like, he's got to go.
Even if somebody told me they're starting to talk to Tuchel now, I'm like, yeah, I mean, talk to him. Like,
But
you
what
should have a
about
guy
what about
ready to.
Van
You should
Nistelrooy for a
have a guy
period of
ready to
time?
go.
What about Rude for like a month or two, and while they kind of figure it out?
Yeah.
The idea that the guy who's the right hand to the failing coach will be so much better than the failing coach, like he's not part of the current issues.
Did you see them arguing
the
today?
flaw I have. I'm
Did
like,
you see them arguing? I've never seen that
I
before.
saw people, but then we as the audience are just like, well, he must have
Yeah.
different philosophies. He must want to do something different. Maybe it's, I'm like, we're just drawing all these conclusions.
Mhm.
Rude is working with these players that are not performing particularly well. He is actively contributing to the situation. And if it's a bad situation, he has a role in that. He's not an outsider. He's in this. So
Yeah,
the
especially
idea
the
that we would be
attacking
better
side.
off,
Yeah.
like the idea we would be better off with putting him in charge is like, yeah, maybe, but I wouldn't want to rely on that.
don't know.
I'm very
Paul,
uncomfortable with the notion.
I think we should probably move on to the other game, but like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to give you your point here, right? But I think
Ultimately, my point is, it's 7 games in. It's all too early.
but,
It's a really bad start.
but
for a
it's
team like Man United.
it's the
It's a bad
worst start
start.
in 3
It's a bad
years.
start.
You 7 games. You had, was it 9 points in the last 2 seasons? This year you have 8. Also, you're
No,
a
but
point
you know
less.
what, Luke? Let's. I think no, I agree. Luke, you and I are on the same side here. We're on the same page. We feel the same. A lot of people. But you know what? I'll give this to Paul. I'll say, you know what? He makes a good point. Where I didn't necessarily agree with him. I think the football's terrible. I think I do, and I know Paul makes fun of me when I say this. I do think he's lost the ear of the dressing room. Like, you know, when you have a manager,
He's
and I
lost the
keep going back to
dressing room
Klopp
100%.
City. They get on board with what he wants and they go out and they do it. I think. Listen, I want to defend Ten Hag a little bit. I think he's got a game plan, and I think he's got ideas. I
Yeah.
don't think he gets these players to do it, and it's his job.
No.
So I don't think he can get them on board for him. And I think that's why we're seeing the bad football. And I kind of feel bad for him in a way because I read a lot of things where people say he's a very smart football mind, but if you can't get the players on board, and Paul's right. Like, there's some players that have been here for a lot of these managers getting fired, and it's still kind of an overhaul. But 7 games, sure. I think he's got to go, but like, I don't know.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that you're trying to defend this guy. That's the point.
I think that is the
point.
popular opinion, but I'll give him the 7 games in, and let's check in another
think
3.
This is where
4
I'm
weeks.
concerned. Everybody's so attacking him, and I'm more like,
It's 'cause of
that's
the
a big
football,
decision
man.
you guys are making. That's and I you need to weigh the odds on this. I'm more like it's more like a calculation than a defense.
Okay, so you had the whole board.
I don't say
board,
things like I really think he's got a vision. I'll never even say like that kind of stuff. I'm just saying a bad start 7 games into a season with contributing factors that are not great, but he should be able to mitigate these things to a certain point. Things like a red card against Bruno that makes the Spurs game look way worse than it was. It's 7 games in that all of a sudden becomes a bigger deal. I just think 7 games in, when he's a manager who is capable of doing more with this team because he's done it. Last season, it's very hard to judge him on. I he won a trophy, cool, but also it's almost like a wash what he was able to do in the Premier
So
League. 'cause of
we'll
injury.
move on and we'll table this conversation between the three of us for 4 to 5 weeks from now. We'll see how they do.
If we
see if they turn it
table
around.
and not talk about it week to week, that would be
It's
great.
hard not to. It's United, man.
The
Everyone
world
talks
goes
about it.
crazy. It was a draw against Aston Villa, who are a good team, and
We
the
were
world
terrible.
went
They were
fucking
worse and we were
crazy.
terrible. Like they were there for the taking and we
were
didn't
terrible,
take it.
but you were
They were
useless, and I
there
think
for the
you-
taking, and
the
our
whole
offense
board
put
was
in
there.
a
I
0 out of
I
10.
think there's a reason the whole board is there.
Also,
I think
Man United were not fucking useless. Johnny Evans was great.
it's sensational.
Let's
We're
talk-
all agreed. Johnny
Let's talk
Evans
about
should be
Chelsea
knighted.
being useless
Chelsea
against
had
Nottingham Forest.
how the fuck are Chelsea fourth?
I think they're playing good football. I'm liking Chelsea this
are.
year. I like them.
I think they are.
They're brand new team, man. Under this manager.
Yeah, they are. They are. They do play
Yeah.
good football, and
Man.
players that weren't performing are starting to. Casado's starting to look
Caicedo,
good. Lavia will come back, and then and Cuckoo coming off the bench looks good. Palmer's an
Unreal.
idiot, but he's an absolute freak of nature. And I think Jackson. As I said a week in week out, stick with Jackson, and then you've got other players like Noni Madueke today. After I take him out of my fantasy team,
Same. I
because
took him
he's
out as
done
well.
nothing. Yeah, took him out and he scores. But I think they've got a lot of talent in that squad now.
James Ward-Prowse with the red card
that's-
too. They
that's
should
a
have
very
gone
good
on to
call.
win it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's questioned the talent level of Chelsea.
Offense, they're man. I would kill that. Like their offense is flying, and the
It's-
defense is kind of questionable a little bit. I still think they're
is.
figuring out. They've got potent attack. Like I think this is a disappointment from how well they've started, especially when they went down to a red. This is going to be the question with these guys. Like I love the options they have coming off the bench. They should have scored more today, and they should have won. The football, Paul. Again, we're talking about United. We move on to Chelsea. The football, like they're a fun team to watch, man. They're like once they get the ball to the attack, a lot more fluid, a lot more like coming in off the wings. Palmer's weaving around. Jackson's playing better. I'm more of an Nkunku guy, but
yeah, they play more of an open. And we'll move on to Spurs. It's the same thing.
Caicedo and Fernandez, $200 million players.
They play in a basketball kind of style. Like
I
in
know,
that,
I
it's
love
just-
it.
That's
It's
a
very
great comment.
exciting. It's very open. It's
awesome.
not exactly controlled chaos. It's just
No,
fucking
it's
chaos.
nonsense.
Yeah.
And they've got so much. Like they're a fun watch, but
Oh, yeah.
it's so
the depth they
open.
have in certain positions, they are
Offensively.
right. Defensively, they haven't got that shored up yet.
No.
But they will. They've got young players that are like Colwell, I really like. Gusto, I really like.
Yeah.
Really, a couple of Diassi is not bad. But then you look at their midfield, right?
No,
You
he's
look at
terrible.
some of them.
Diassi's their worst player. Cucurella's been good ever since the Euros, I think.
Cucurella, I know I kind of was blanking on him, but I still think they need a dominant centre back for sure. They haven't found. I think Reece James is broken beyond. Fofana. Wesley
Fofana's back. He's playing okay.
He's playing good.
Another 80 million.
I'm going to point out that the 13 minutes of extra time for this game was
Oh, man.
13 of the most exciting back and forth.
Crazy.
It wasn't even a basketball game anymore. It was more like a hockey game.
Mhm.
In that everybody was actively taking shots, and the shots would turn into a rebound, and then that rebound would go back the other way, and it would turn into a shot, and it would be a rebound, go back the other way. It was wild. So Chelsea point I'm going to make real quickly is that their upcoming fixtures will be the thing that tells us if they deserve to be a fourth place team or not, because these bad boys, Palmer's men is like what I'd like to call them, have Liverpool coming up, Newcastle, Man United, and then Arsenal in the next 4.
Yeah.
And some of those games are home and some of those games are away. I won't tell you which ones, but it's going to be, I think, where we start to really see what they are.
I like Maresca. There's something about Maresca I like. He's very blunt. He's very direct. Like he's a bit of a Pep disciple, as we all know. But I don't know. It seems like if you're a Chelsea fan and we look at last year, like that was like a runaway train on fire, absolutely horrendous. What an improvement so far. But Paul's right. He does make a good point, and we can't make it just about United, Paul. I mean, Luke, you were talking about Villa being lucky, scraping by. Chelsea have gotten over the line a few times. Let's see where they are after those games, right? Like, at the mid-November, I think is going to be where we'll get a bit of better idea of where everyone's kind of really at. Right?
I mean, 7 games. It's just so fucking small.
But you have to factor in the eye test in these games too. And Chelsea have been exciting. Other teams,
but we've saved the best till last.
Oh man, this was crazy. I loved this.
Spurs 2-0 up, and somehow walk away 3-2 losers to Brighton. And Danny Welbeck. Danny Welbeck.
Crazy.
It's crazy a little bit. It's
Yeah.
crazy a little bit, this game. I don't know if it's Brian's not here to answer this question. I would imagine Spurs fans have to start noticing that their very exciting style of football has very little practical, pragmatic elements to it.
Correct.
And that in the Premier League, when you open it up like that and you go full throttle, there is another team that you're playing against that will also open it up and go full throttle. And sometimes that's going to bite you in the ass. And I feel like Spurs do they need to start thinking about this style and how far they want to go?
Well, I can speak this a little bit. So because Brian's on our show, and it's the same with Villa, right? Like you kind of get on board with your mates. I'm a little bit more attached to like the Villa stuff and the Spurs stuff. There is quite a portion of their fan bases. I don't know if they're like full Ange out. They're not very happy with him, and they're blaming him for today. And Paul's right. Like if you want to be free flowing up front, you got to kind of figure out a way to lock it up at the back. And 2-0 up at halftime. The goalie should have had it, but still, you're going to the dressing room 2-0. 3 straight goals in the second half, and the defending was poor. Because I think Spurs, like, again, I'll contrast to United. When they get the ball in midfield and they move it to attack, similar to Chelsea, great to watch. They're creating all the time. Huge effort, speed. Brennan Johnson looks phenomenal. Like, really good. But then on the counter, when the other team gets it, fucking wide open, man. Like, they've been cut to pieces a number of times, too. It's a concern. So, like, yeah, he's got this style, but isn't the style, like, you have to be able to keep goals out. You can't just try to score 5 every game. I think it is becoming
Jurgen Klopp had a similar style and got lit up season 1, and then he changed it season 2.
This is season 2 for Ange.
He accounted for it. And Ange, a Spurs fan maybe picks up on this more than maybe I would on the outside, because again, I'm just watching fucking back and forth exciting. I don't see him making any adjustments to the way they're playing. It does always feel like we're just going to open this bad boy up and see what happens. And that's, again, the exciting team to watch, exciting football.
Here's the thing, though. If you look at
I cheer a club that people like they will hold you to the standard of it should be exciting football, and results are cool, but it should be exciting.
Look at their back four: Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero, and Porro. On paper, their back four is great, but he pushes them all the way up, and they got exposed on those 3 goals today. Like,
and it's this high line. It's this high line that they do.
Risky biz.
It is very risky biz, and I just don't the risk reward of it, the equation of it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know how enamored I am with him anymore as a manager.
I love him
either.
I need the personality, and he's got it.
He seemed like a charming little leprechaun when he started, and I liked his personality. And now I see more often than not, I see him like almost berating press.
Do you think he's cocky?
Like, I've heard him being quite rude to the press, and sometimes the questions have been like pretty basic questions, and I'm like, that's kind of not really cool. They're just doing their job. And there are questions about his open style of play and getting exposed and stuff. So it's almost like he's not prepared to answer the philosophy that he's playing with.
Yeah.
Luke,
where are you at with Spurs?
I don't know.
Honestly, I couldn't really give a shit, but honestly, I enjoy watching them. I think they've built a very enjoyable squad. I think some of their players are really starting to come through. Look, you got to give Brennan Johnson a shout out. I think that's 3rd goal in 3 weeks. He really looks like the real deal, that young lad. They made a couple of ridiculous ones, but their back line, Porro's great, Van de Ven's great, and got the goalie, I forget his name, he's fantastic as well. But I think what you've both said is exactly right. What we're seeing now is it was fun. It was all fun and games, right? Oh, Angie's got this great personality. Oh, g'day, mate. Well, you can't say that. And now he's being put to the sword, and he's getting a bit whingy, as Connie used it, perfect, colicky. He's getting a little irritable, and he doesn't like when he's told no, and he doesn't like he doesn't. I think what's happening is you're seeing the difference between great managers that pivot and can pivot and ones that aren't, right? And I will say Unai is one of those for us. What Unai does better than any manager I've seen for Villa is he knows exactly how to change the game, and he's not afraid to change. Like
Yeah.
he'll throw on, he's like, right, we're gonna play different, and maybe that's fuck it, we're root oneing it, right? And he will. Whereas
Did you see Ange at the
I haven't
final
seen
whistle
it.
today? He
Yeah,
looked devastated. He was standing
of
there like, and he
course.
was staring into the abyss, like he couldn't believe that they'd get. Like he just looked raging, like quiet raging, and you
Yeah,
could tell he was like ready to kill somebody. And it was just like,
yeah,
and again, we keep saying, who does this liken? Do we all remember a certain Bielsa with Leeds? This is
yeah.
very Bielsa-esque for me. Running gun, free flowing, fucking burn the boats, put everything
Good ship.
forward.
Yep.
But the team on paper
Burn
is
the
good, but you
boats.
have to fucking defend a 2-0 lead, man. Holy shit.
Correct.
Unreal. But you know what, Brighton, you want to talk about a team top of like top half, maybe like seventh or eighth. Brighton, they're brilliant. And they're good, they're a good football team to watch.
Brighton are really interesting because
Yeah,
fuck. I mean, their 31-year-old manager is crazy.
I love it.
Like to take a chance on a guy like that and just be like, you know what, we've had a lot of luck just picking these guys that are like well below the radar
Yeah.
and making them the next Chelsea manager. So let's get this 31-year-old and see what he can do. And they're fucking fun to watch. And I
Yep.
love what he's doing with Danny Welbeck.
He's in my fantasy team, by the way.
I know.
Who?
I love him.
Danny Welbeck.
Anyway, I tell you what, you gotta give it to Brian because
Yeah.
there's few teams I can think of in the world that are run as beautifully as this team. They've
Yeah.
lost key players in injury, and
Oh, yeah.
they
And
they lose
sold.
Petra, and they've sold a ton, lost a ton. Evan Ferguson was the hot shot. He's barely starting right now. I remember a couple of seasons ago, Tarek Lamptey, Real Madrid
Yeah.
were
You
rumored in.
loved him. We all kind of loved him.
He's fantastic. He's not even
Yeah.
playing.
Nope.
Purvis Stupinan. He's not even playing. He's not on the bench.
Dude,
The quality.
McAllister and Caicedo. McAllister and Caicedo.
They
Holy
lost
shit.
all these players, and it didn't seem to make a blind bit of difference. They play this beautiful, smart football. That Minter that they've picked up, Matoma, just really
He was good
smart,
today. Matoma was
really
brilliant.
smart.
But
They're a
we
good
talk
team.
about football, though, and a team that works on and off the ball and puts in 100% every single time I watch them.
Yeah.
They don't, and I'm not saying down in tools, but they go out and give it everything every week, win or lose. I saw them play go a couple of weeks ago and they got beat. They weren't great, but they were trying. You know what I mean? And they're a good team. I root for Brighton a little bit, almost like the way Paul is with like Leicester and Wolves. I kind of like Brighton. Like I get
Do you
behind
know
It's
the
hard
one-
not to like Brighton. It's hard not to like
Yeah.
him.
I would say it's crazy. I think of how good some of our centre backs were during the Euros, but I honestly look at Lewis Dunk and I'm like, I would want Lewis Dunk in a centre back pairing. And I'm thinking international football. You
He's
stick
great.
him and Gay. I honestly think Lewis Dunk, he's an absolute unit of a guy. He's like
Oh, yeah.
6'6". He's huge.
Yeah,
and he's in
fantastic.
everything. He's quick. He's a very smart centre back as well. Like they are just top to bottom. They look nice. So yeah, but also it's always fun to see Tottenham be Spursy, and God bless them, they found it. It was changing, and we're starting to fix it, and we're starting to look good. No.
It was an entertaining game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
It was. It's the Premier League. It was a showcase for the Premier League too. It was
Fantastic.
It was.
2-0 on paper. This should be done. Guess what?
So
There's no
Ange
paper.
called it his worst defeat since he's been at Spurs. It says
Is
his
he-
worst defeat as a Spurs boss. Yeah, I'm telling you, he was raging.
I would
I'm
like.
gonna-
I'm gonna. I almost was tempted to be like, is he in trouble? But like even now, I'm like, it's too early. Like that's. I don't want to be start asking other managers are in trouble. Like the Wolves guy is maybe in trouble. I get why that could be a conversation point, but Ange is.
I think he is in trouble. I think at the end of the season, I think unless they finish top 5, top 6, which I just don't see them having the consistency to get through the line, I think Ange will be gone. I think it's not working. I think they took a risk, and I think they're starting to see that it's not quite getting over the line as they hoped it might do. I think he's interesting. We agree, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he needs a bit more time. But I don't see that level of intelligence that you want from a what they're trying to be a really top team. And I just don't know if he's got it. He's a
I
great man.
think the theme of this tonight's show is like, and I'll get on board with Paul and say 7 games, right? We talk about United, Chelsea, even Villa doing well, but you're saying it's a little bit clouded, right? I think like end of November, I think what you're saying is maybe going to come true. I think we got to see where Villa's at. Like on paper, I think they've improved quite a bit, really good attacking,
Yeah.
but like, can he get them winning games and defending while scoring? Starting to question it a little bit, but I mean, it's one
We've
of
got
those
players.
where
We got a lot
gotta
coming
keep an
back.
eye on it.
Mings,
Yeah.
Mings and Boubacar Kamara played 45 for the under-21s this week.
That's good.
So even just having Mings in rotation, which if any Villa fan thinks Mings is coming back and playing as a starting centre-back at 32 with 2 ACL injuries, you're kidding yourself.
What about
is going
Onana?
to be
Is he bad injury or is he just out for
no, couple of weeks. I think after the international break, maybe one more week, or he
I
might be
think
back.
Villa will be fine.
I think
Villa
that's
will be fine.
That's probably
get
like
McGinn
my
back in
biggest thing. At this stage of the season, the standings are so misleading because you really
That's
have to look
fair.
at who they played in the 7 games matters just as much as the total points they have currently.
Correct.
Because it could sound really bad, but then when you look at the points that maybe got on the road at certain stadiums where you're not supposed to get points, it could actually be, oh, that's a good haul. That will suit them well when they get to the halfway point of the season or the end of the season. So 7 games is just like this very dangerous space where it feels like we're back. It feels like we're up and running. We're about to hit our second international break to internationals. But even eyeball tests are like, it's hard to tell because,
You tell a
certainly
little
possible
bit.
to start off badly and then turn it all around and have everything
Of course.
kind of like,
It's not nothing though. Like we can't say, hey, they played 7
7
games.
games is like that weird space where you should start to see things, or you can start getting suspicions on things, and maybe it's a continuation of what you saw last season. So you're like, I've seen enough, or whatever the decision is that you're calling it out, but it's also a very small sample size that you just a little bit extra work to like dig into what that actual like looks like Aston Villa, like looking into, well, they've actually had a fairly simple run of games so far. So maybe it's too early to see where they are in the standings, or going to Brighton and being like, well, Brighton actually have done some things against some good teams already. Like that is very impressive where they are, even more so because they shouldn't be in 5th, but to be in 5th against some of the teams they played against, it's fucking great.
And we all know as the season gets on longer, you need rotation, you need depth, right? Like we talk about all that. So I mean, we'll see. I think when we all chat, I mean, we'll chat as much as we do, but when we get to the end of November, we're going to be at least a third of the way through the season. I think we can have a genuine, honest conversation about like what we've seen so far, and we can make some assessments on these managers and these teams. Like there's no way that we can't, right?
Time will tell.
I think this is good. After 15 games, you start to see this table take shape. I think that's probably exactly right. I think that's where the massive swings here and there start going away because math starts playing a factor. Anyway,
Luke, between you and me, I hope my manager's sacked before then, but we'll see.
Paul will be digging up stats. Well, 13 games.
I'd put money on it. I'd actually put money on him getting sacked. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's the right thing to do, but I'd
trending that way, right?
I'd go because Tuchel's the only guy that's available.
Let's say I gave you like $1,000 and you got to bet on it. How many more weeks do you think he makes it? Like if you like, it's free money and you get to bet on it.
Oh, I think if they're going
less than a month
at this point, if they're going to do it, I think they would probably admit that the new ownership, the new group would have to say, we need to be seen as making a firm, quick decision. And now before an international break would be the time to do that. So correct. I think if it's going to happen, it would actually happen now.
I think it will.
And if they don't do it now, then it's because they're going to give him until like Christmas or like the midway point to really see where he goes out. I'd put money, like I wouldn't put a lot of money on it, and I don't like it. I'm very much of an advocate of, if you made the decision 7 games ago, why are we acting like we don't have a plan or 7 results or bad form, or it's going to reverse something? Like I think it's bad business to make a change like this when you
think a draw at Villa probably gave him a bit of a lifeline. Like if Villa were on form today and slapped us around a little bit, but we'll see.
I'm definitely not here saying going, ETH will never go. I'm like, there's really good chance that he will go. And if it's probably going to happen, it's going to happen in the next couple of days. If it happens,
with Luke.
If it doesn't happen in the next couple of days, I think he's probably going to have at least until he gets maybe the window. I certainly, if he doesn't pick up points over the next 4 games when they're all relatively easy games, that changes things. But
I don't know.
I don't think he
boys.
makes it past October, but we'll see. I mean, what do we know? We'll see.
Time will tell.
yeah, we'll see.
Time will
This
tell.
kind of I feel like this kind of talk is ghoulish as well. I'm just like this
Exactly.
whole like
But it is a conversation, right? Like everyone's having it.
It's
We're
like-
having it.
And it is Halloween. A ghoulish conversation makes.
That's right.
Woo!
There you
He's
go.
gonna go on
All right,
Halloween. You heard
fellas.
here 4 stars. Okay, Sunday roast. Long one. Good chat, guys. Everybody out there, like and subscribe. If you want to be a member of the show, if you want to contribute on the show, if you want to come on live, drop us a line. It's very easy. It's shockingly easy to get on YouTube these days. Anybody can do it, even Luke Conley. This has been the North End. This has been the Sunday roast. Everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Peace. See you longer.
This is the North End.